And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LinkedIn Live Insights from a Headhunter. And today we have a wonderful guest, Stella da Silva. Welcome, Stella.
Hi, Tiina. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad that you could join us all the way from Oman.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I'm so curious. So you work as a trainer and a training consultant, and I want to know all about it. How did you end up living in Oman? Uh, Please tell us your
I,
story.
I'm gonna cut a very long story very short, but literally, I actually got this position through LinkedIn. It all started on LinkedIn. That's correct. So I came back on LinkedIn in 2017. I had less than, I think, 200 connections back then. I thought, oh, I need to put out content because the LinkedIn had actually changed from when I first registered in 2009. I saw people putting out what was called content. I didn't even know what that was. And literally, I just started to really enjoy writing about what I did as a trainer, literally. And of course, you start about 3, 4, 5, 6 likes. One of them is yours. And then, you start building a network. You get to know some amazing people. They start to connect you to other people. And before you know it, I'm already generating leads on LinkedIn. So when I came back in 2000, a lurker, and a lurker is someone who constantly sees your content, doesn't engage on it, doesn't press the like button, nothing, but they see what you're doing. So I had one of these lurkers send me a DM after, being on LinkedIn for about, 2 months or so. And she said to me at the time, "You keep popping up on my feed." And that's a good thing to hear because that's what you want. And she said, "Oh, I like what you do. I think I've got some work for you. I would like you to come and deliver some training in Saudi Arabia." And initially, I was like, Saudi Arabia, not sure about that. I've heard so many horror stories. Is this a trick? Does this really happen on LinkedIn? So anyway, we booked a Zoom call. I had a Zoom call with her, and she was actually real. She was a real potential client. So within a very short period for me, I got this gig to deliver a 3 week training in Saudi Arabia, and on the way back, I had a very good friend of mine in Oman. So on the way back to London, he said to me, "Look, just come to Oman for the weekend, and then come and say hi, and then you can go back to London." So I said, "Fine." And I had been in Saudi Arabia for 3 weeks. And in Saudi Arabia, you have to wear an abaya and the headscarf, right? And I was like, "Do I have to do the same in Oman?" And he goes, "Oman is like Saudi Arabia." So I said, "Okay, fine." So anyway, and have an amazing weekend. I come back to London, and within a week or so, I get a DM from another lurker type person. We're not fully connected. And he said that he's going to be coming to London. He was based in Malaysia at the time, and he would like to meet up with him. He tells me about a project that he's working on at the moment. He'd seen what I was doing in Saudi Arabia and obviously had seen my content and thought that I would be the ideal person to work on this project. And I say, "Fine." I say, "Where's this project going to be?" He said, "Oman." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "I just came, I was in Oman like for the weekend. Are you joking?" So this was now early 2018, and literally, Tiina, for the whole of 2018, I was on a flight to Oman every single month to deliver training. And then through that, I got offered a 2-year contract to come and work full time in Oman, which I took. And here I am in Oman. But my contract is coming to an end at the end of this year. So I'll be going back to the UK in early January. But literally, LinkedIn offered me that opportunity to get this job here in Oman through content.
Wow, this is amazing. And your job is to help people with employability.
Right. So here in Oman, I work at the Ministry of Labour, and we focus on job seekers and getting Omanis back to work, to full-time employment through on-the-job training, or getting them a job directly with an employer. So that's what my job here is in deliver train the trainer courses to these vocational trainers who then go on to train these young Omanis and get them ready for work in Oman. So that's what I do here, and I love it.
And so my question to you is it universal or is it country specific?
At the moment, it's country specific, but when I go back to the UK, and then becomes universal. So prior to me coming to Oman, I was actually delivering training before COVID, obviously, literally all over the world, where, you know, countries will ask for people like myself as a training consultant to come and consult on vocational education and training, on the job training, quality assurance. So I would work very closely with training providers, governments of different countries on vocational qualification, like the UK concept of vocational education and on the job training.
Yeah, and I think there are I work with as a headhunter with candidates from different parts of the world. And I see so many things that are similar. It doesn't matter if you're based in Belgium or in the US or in India. So many things are similar. So what would you say as a general tip for a resume? What would you say like a good practice?
You're absolutely right when it comes to resumes. And although people always think that, yes, there are other ways of getting a job or employment, you know, resume, sending a CV or resume is still going to be probably one of the things that you will have to do initially. Even us as freelance consultants, when I'm talking to clients, they want to see my resume. They want to see exactly what it is I have done, because I'm able through my resume to demonstrate some key skills and to demonstrate my knowledge and my expertise, right? So that is what you then need to put on your resume. And a common mistake, and this is a universal mistake, do on their resumes is they tend to write more about their roles and responsibilities rather than what value they can actually potential employer. So people like me, as an employability skills coach, would then say, well, hang on a second, what you've given me is a list of roles and responsibilities. What I want you to do is to tell me what value were you to your last employer, and what value can you bring to your present employer. So these are the kind of things that you need to think about when you're writing your CV and resume. And of course, the most important thing is formatting. It's the format of your CV, because again, a universal is that some people will either write a one-page resume or a 3, 4, 5, we've seen 7-page resumes. And really and truly, what we say, most career coaches will advise you that no more than 2 pages. 3 in exceptional circumstances, but in 2 pages, you can actually say quite a lot. And that's, in all honesty, that is what hiring managers, recruiters have time to go through if they've got thousands of CVs. Right? So you really have to create that first impression, literally at the top, first half of your first page, for them to want to carry on reading the other information on your CV or your resume.
I totally agree with you that there is this myth that CV should only be 1 page, and I think where does it come from? It comes from the era when we were receiving paper CVs, and somebody had to scan them in, and they didn't want to scan more than 1 page, and now it's not the case. And I understand if you're a recent graduate that you can put everything on 1 page, but if you have 15 years of experience, you really should use 2 pages, because
that is absolute, you've hit it on the nail. We would expect recent graduates with probably no work experience, and even then I would question graduates as to, you know, I'd really question a graduate with no work experience, in the sense of voluntary work, in the sense of a little part-time job. So all these things they can put on on their resume, right? And for people with at least 3 years experience, I would expect 2 pages, because by the time you put your personal details, your profile summary, your key skills, that's best part of, right? Yeah. That is best part of a page. And by the time you're now going down to your work experience, where you're really demonstrating these key skills that you've listed, another common universal mistake that I will talk about in a minute. But once you've demonstrated these key skills on your resume, you're already onto page. So usually, if a recruiter is sending out a job advert and is asking for 10 or 10 plus years experience, and they get a 1-page, that's going to be a massive red flag for the potential recruiter or hiring manager, because they're going to think straight away, there's no way they would have been able to demonstrate their 10 years worth of experience on 1 page by the time they fill out all the necessary. So then you're almost doing yourself a disservice if you've got so much years of experience by sending just 1 page. And what I was talking about in terms of your key skills, a universal mistake that so many people do, and I have to pick up every time I'm reviewing CVs and resumes, is that people list their key skills. So they'll write things like good communication skills, good leadership skills, good management skills, all these fancy words. They will put a list. Sometimes there's 10 key skills that will put, which is all fine and good, but that doesn't actually tell the recruiter or hiring manager anything. It's just a list. So what you have to do is, if you're listing these key skills, so if you're telling me that you've got good communication skills, then you need to demonstrate that in your work experience section. You need to demonstrate the key skills that you've listed. So again, these are the reasons that, you know, with a pile of 200 CVs in front of them, these are the reasons why a recruiter can easily then do that to a CV and look at the next one. It's a vicious world out there. But if you're not if you're not fully demonstrating your abilities, your key skills, and what value you can bring to an employer, that is what happens. In the bin and onto the next one. Don't forget, they've got, let's say for every job, they've got 200 CVs, right? They probably want to interview 10 people out of those 200 CVs. So they've got to find a reason to do that to more or less 190 CVs. So there will be different reasons why a human recruiter, hiring manager will be tearing and putting 190 CVs in the bin. But it doesn't mean that people are not competent for the job. It just means that their CVs or their resume isn't fit for purpose. So it hasn't stood out from the crowd. And that's the whole point of your CV or resume, is that you want it to stand out from the 200 and hopefully will be picked for interview. So that's why people like myself and so many other great career coaches out there will sit down with you, have a one-to-one with you, and talk about formatting your CV or your resume.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that you're saying, that often when you think it's my CV, it has to reflect me. And honestly, it really needs to reflect the job description that you're applying to, and highlighting your skills and experiences in that field. So it's more about what value you will bring, rather than about you. So
absolutely. And the thing with job descriptions, and so again, a universal thing that so many people do, is they literally just read the job description and go, yeah, I'm good for the job, and send the CV off. And no, there's a job description for a specific reason. You need to match what the job description is saying onto your CV or resume. That's why I always say one CV or resume doesn't fit all the jobs that you're going to apply for. You have to tweak your CV or resume to every job that has a job description. Because again, if you are applying on employment portals, for example, you need to think about what we call ATS. And ATS is the applicant tracking system, right? And the applicant tracking system is based on two things on your CV or resume. It's based on formatting, and it's based on keywords. So there'll be certain keywords from the job description that this ATS is programmed to pick out when you download your CV, right? And this is and sometimes we don't know what these keywords are. Sometimes it's a guessing game. But for experience like us, we've got a fair idea what the keywords could be. So these are the kind of things that you need to think about. A job description is not just for you to just scour through it and go, yes, I'm ready for the job. But you really then need to format it and put some certain keywords from the job description onto your is not ATS compliant, it's not ATS friendly.
in the job description, so use exactly the same words.
It's not
So
a
I
question.
have a look at the. Yep.
Sorry, Tiina. It's not a question of using the same words. It's a question of finding some key words in the job description and putting it onto your CV and resume. And what I don't want people to do, because this is another big thing, is they tend to copy and paste the roles and responsibilities of the job description onto their CVs and resumes. Your CV is not fit for purpose when you do that, because that's what it is. It's just roles and responsibilities that the employer is looking for. What you need to do is to demonstrate the key skills of those roles and responsibilities.
Exactly. Let me head over to the comments. We have Varsha from India. Hello, ladies. Good
Hi,
evening.
Varsha.
Hello. What do you have on offer instead of routine delivers? So very crucial. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Spot on.
We have, Jillian from Las Vegas. Hello,
Hi,
ladies.
Jillian.
Thank you for joining us. Love your sunflowery nail color, Stella. Then we have a LinkedIn user. Hi, Stella and Tiina. So lovely to see you both and listen to your insightful comments. So this is somebody I'm not connected to and whose LinkedIn setting is private. So it's not visible. So I will contact you afterwards and tell you how to change it in your settings so you will be visible on LinkedIn and maybe get an opportunity like Stella got. Don't be invisible. Hi, both. So lovely to see Stella. Her career journey is truly special and unique. I can only agree. Hi, Sonal. She's almost my neighbor here in Belgium.
I know.
So lovely that you joined. And true that Stella, job description are often checklisted in the mind than in practice and on the resume.
Absolutely.
So really. And David is saying, hello, Tiina and Stella, a great stream.
Hi, David.
So if you have any other comments or questions, leave it here. I have one that I got in my DMs. I would like to apply for a job in the UK. What mistakes should I avoid on my resume?
Okay, so
on the continent here in Europe.
Right. Okay. So UK and probably quite a few countries in Europe. Things like real personal details you should avoid on your resume. So things like your date of birth, your ethnicity, your marital status. You should avoid all that on your resume, because again, in the UK, we've got the Equality Act that protects you nation. So, you don't, and even data protection for that matter. So you don't have to put that information on your CV. Likewise, we advise that you don't put a photo of yourself. Now, I understand that in some countries, you do have to put a picture. But my advice is, unless you are asked to put a picture of yourself on your resume, don't do it. And the reason we say don't do it is because there is potential that you may be discriminated for whatever reason. Okay. And again, beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. But I have seen in some instances where, you know, people have sent CVs with their pictures, you know, that a particular CV would be branded around the office in terms of, oh, look at this picture and this, that, and the other. And there is potential for discrimination. So we tell people to avoid putting photos of themselves on their CV. And probably another thing to do or to think about is for the UK, and in terms of general formatting of your CVs and resumes, you really should think about having your work experience before your education. Okay, as much as some people have degrees and, you know, all these fancy PhDs and masters, that's all well and good, and well done for that. Great achievements. Deep down, all the employer is bothered about is whether or not you can do the job, right? He's not really too bothered about your academic, unless, again, specifically it says that you need this degree to do whatever, whatever. So again, in order of importance and in order of formatting, your work should come before your academic qualification. And in fact, your professional qualifications should come before your academic qualifications. Because again, when you have a professional qualification, it demonstrates key competencies of you being able to do that job rather than what your academic qualification does. So again, these are quite a few things in terms of formatting people need to think about. And this is not just for a market. This is generally speaking. Though I know, because again, I heard this on Clubhouse when I was speaking to two Indian consultants, they were saying that in India, education is a big thing. So again, in the Indian market, they tend to put their education right at the top, and that's what they expect to see. So again, you've got to kind of figure out, you know, formatting in individual countries, but for the whole, that's how we would form the resume.
And I think it's so important that you say that, because the studies, it can be 15 years ago, but the specific courses that you have taken that correspond to the skills, the recent ones that are the most important ones, are the ones that have to stand out. And I sometimes see also in chronological order, that it's like, no, you have to start with not with your first job, but what you're doing right now, and then you go back. And when you go back, then the information gets less, because the focus is what you're doing now. Your first job doesn't have to have the same amount of lines and information, because you evolved.
I always say this, I have over 30 years work experience, right? If I put all my work experience down on my resume, I'm going to be 6 pages long, right? So I have to cut it down to what I have been really doing probably the last 10, maybe 15 years, right? And also, this is a crucial point I make, and I see this again when I'm constantly reviewing CVs or resumes, is if somebody has been working in an organization for, say, 3 to 5 years, and I see 3 bullet points, straight away, even me as a recruiter, I'm going to do that to your CV. So again, that's one less of the 200 CVs, because it's a massive red flag. Because the moment, and this is how I talk to my clients when I'm doing the CV, the moment you give a hiring manager or a recruiter the chance to have to ask a piece that cannot talk back to it any questions, that is the moment the recruiter or the hiring manager is going to tear up the CV. So what I'm saying is this: if you've been working in an organization for 3 to 5 years and you're giving me 3 bullet points of what you've done in the 3 to 5 years, as a recruiter or hiring manager, I'm going to be having to look at this CV and ask this piece of paper that can't answer me back, so what the hell have you done for the last 3 to 5 years? So again, that's also another clue in terms of the kind of information we expect on a CV and resume. You've really got to write the key things you've been doing in those years that you've been working in an organization. Otherwise, again, we don't know, because the moment I have to ask, so what have they been doing? What else have they been doing in an organization is another reason to rip that CV off and focus on the other 190 CVs that I have to look at. So the kind of things you need to think about when you're writing about your work experience. We just don't want to see one-liners, okay? And there's a key principle that we career coaches advise people on when they're writing about their work experience, is to maybe think about using what we call the STAR method.
Yeah.
Okay, Stella, star. You will always remember this. Stella, star. Okay, so when you're writing about your job description and what value you can bring, you're trying to tell me, the employer, or the hiring or the recruiter like yourself, Tiina, we're trying to tell you what the situation is, okay? And then what task did you actually do? And what was the action you took? And of course, what was the result? Because then you are fully able to demonstrate your competence at doing a specific role, okay? And that will link nicely to skills that you've listed above on your CV or your resume. So when you use that STAR principle, you can then bring in your key skills to further demonstrate what action you took, what were the results, and what the results was. And this is why we always say, don't just write a list of your roles and your responsibilities, because that tells me nothing of your competency, and it tells me nothing of the value you can bring to my organization.
Yes, and like you said, you have to set the situation as well, because every organization is different in different countries. The same company has different amount of employees, different global reach. You really have to set the scene that we will understand what we're.
I love it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is why we also say that rather than list 10 roles and responsibilities, write 3 good, concise sentences using the STAR method than a list of 10 bullet points. You're far likely to impress a recruiter, a hiring manager with telling us what value you can bring and what you've done and what is the evidence to show for it. So again, what we'd like to see on CVs are numbers. People always tell me that, I manage a team.
Yes.
A team could be 2 people, it could be 10 people. I manage a team of 10 people. That tells me you manage a fairly big team, right? So again, I work, in budgets, and well, what kind of budget? What's the amount? Is it £10? Is it the cash, the petty cash you deal with? Is it millions of pounds that you deal with? Numbers, percentages really shows your credibility on your CV or resume.
Exactly. And also the global scope. If you were managing a team, local team or a virtual team, in how many countries, which different time zones, because that that's valuable information. That's where you should put the energy.
Absolutely. And the key thing is that if you don't do, and you've key skills, that you've got good communication skills, that is going to be another reason that happens, because you actually haven't communicated at all what it is what it is you do. You really haven't got good communication skills. As a key skills, as a key skill, that you have got good communication skills, you better be able to demonstrate that on your CV or resume, because otherwise it's a big red flag for a recruiter or hiring manager, because you haven't actually communicated effectively what it is you can do and what value you can bring to my organization. So that's another thing I want people to think about when they're writing as a key skills, that they've got good communication skills.
Yeah. Let me pull up another question from Sharon. What do you do when you see a job description that is so general and you struggle with tailoring your resume? A good question.
So what do you do when you see a job description that is general? So I think when you're talking about general, you're talking about a generic job description. The thing is that you still need to look at the roles and responsibilities, Sharon, on the job description, because there are going to be certain keywords within those roles and responsibility that an employer or the ATS will pick up from your CV or resume. So regardless of how generic a job description is, that is the reason they've given you one, is for you to just sit down, really read what the job description is looking for and asking for, and then maybe using the STAR method to then demonstrate it from the experiences you've had in your current role, and then tailoring your CV towards that. And like I said, and Tiina said earlier on, one size does not fit all. You cannot use the one CV that you've maybe spent hours on, okay, to apply for, especially if you're applying for different jobs, if you haven't looked at the job description, because even generic job descriptions have different things in them and different keywords as well. So I hope that's answered Sharon's question.
Yeah, I think, and when it's very general, the job description, I would do more research. Like,
absolutely,
I can see from people who have put in effort in the interview situation, who has done their homework, have they looked up the company page, the products, the services, that you will have a totally different level of conversation, that you can showcase that you have, you're interested. Because one thing is to come to an interview and say, I'm very motivated, I'm very interested, but another one is walking the talks, saying what you have seen, and sometimes there are things on the website, that company website, that even the hiring manager is not aware about, because there are so many different projects. And when you highlight that, then they say, oh, okay, she really is interested. So
absolutely. And what is lovely about even talking to you, Tiina, about this particular topic, is that people can listen and understand it from a recruiter's perspective, right? Because that's what you do. And from people like myself who are career coaches, because then we like to think that we are now aligned. So people like myself listen to people like you of what it is they are looking for on resumes and on CVs, because then we are better informed to then deliver to our clients who come to us and say, I want you to work on my CV or resume. So it's really, really important that, you know, we're also listening. And that's why I have a huge network of recruiters. I speak to a lot of hiring managers. You know, when I'm delivering employability skills, I come on LinkedIn and I say, look, I'm delivering a workshop on employability skills, employers, recruiters. What is it you are looking for? Because I've got the real evidence in front of me that I can then show, so that, you know, my clients or my learners are, you know, they believe that I'm not making this up. Because when I'm telling them these kind of information, they always think that I'm joking. When I'm ripping up the CV, I'm telling you, no, this is real life. This is what they do. So it's really good that we also get to hear from your perspective, Tiina, as a recruiter, in what it is you're also looking for in these. And I'm glad that we are aligned.
Yes. So, and this is a really good question from David. What advice would you two give to perform well in a job interview? And maybe we could talk about virtual interviews now, because most of the interviews currently are virtual, at least the first one. And many people don't have experience in them, and they are very specific, different from normal interviews.
I think, David, brilliant question. And I've actually worked on with David on his resume. So I'm glad he's actually here wanting some more information. So with regards to interviews, even virtual or face-to-face, and I did a carousel on this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. First thing, the moment you walk into an interview, is if they don't offer you a glass of water, for one. Okay, and it's the same thing in a virtual interview. Have a glass of water, okay, because you're nervous. We're all nervous, and people who are interviewing you, they know this. They absolutely know that you're nervous. So, you know, having a glass of water there will help you just to calm your nerves, to, you know, avoid the dry mouth when you're answering the question. But another little trick that I shared on LinkedIn with regards to having a glass of water is that sometimes just taking a sip of water buys you a little time, especially on those tough questions that you just need a few seconds to think about, and you don't necessarily want to ask the person to repeat the question. You can actually ask them to rephrase the question. Okay, so that's one good tip. If you don't answer, if you don't quite understand the question, or you just need a few seconds, a way of asking is, can you rephrase the question? But another good tip is just take a bit of water, gives you a few seconds, not with a straw, obviously. You know, you take a little sip and then you can answer the question. When I demonstrate this in my sessions, what I do say is, you don't do this. So somebody asks you a question and, you know, Stella has said, oh yeah, take a sip of water. What I don't mean is, that's not what I mean. Okay. So again, you do it in a natural way. Okay. So these are just a few tricks. Another big advice, David, is most questions need the star format to answer it. Okay. So the moment you hear questions like, give me an example, tell me when, start thinking Stella star, Stella star, because you then start with your situation, you talk about the task, what action you took, and what was the result. And the result doesn't always have to be positive. It doesn't have to have a happy ending in terms of the result. But if it hasn't got a happy on the result, then this is a good opportunity to then tell the interviewer that in hindsight, this is what I should have done. Because then it's really telling the interviewer that you have a thought process. So these are a few little tricks that you can do when you are at interviews. So David, I hope that has answered a few of your questions in terms of advice.
And I would add to that, in the end of the interview, you always get asked, do you have questions to us? So I think it's so important that you are proactive, that you write down the questions, because sometimes you are so nervous that you will forget about the questions. Write the questions down, because it also shows your interest, that you have done your homework, that you know about the company. And I've heard such good questions that it has been better than the whole interviews. So when you come to the end with those questions, it just demonstrates that you are really a good match for that position, and you should go on to the next interview round.
And this is even where LinkedIn plays quite an important part at interviews, in terms of even asking questions like, oh, have you got a company page on LinkedIn? Again, is a great question, because if they haven't, you're giving them something to think about. So again, you're almost investing in the value that you can bring onto it's, again, like your CV and resume, what you want to do. Remember, at the beginning of this discussion, I said the manager has 200 CVs, right? And they've narrowed it to 10 people that they're calling for interview. And out of these 10 people, okay, they only want one person. So that means one person has to really stand out from the crowd, right? So even with the questions, Tiina, that you were talking about, it's going to sound really boring if they get the same generic questions, right? And if you say the same generic answers, you stand out from the crowd when when they look at you like, wow. Because when you leave that room, especially when you're in a panel of people interviewing you, I guarantee you it's you from other people that they've interviewed, because there was just something unique you said during the interview that the other 9 didn't say. So that's the whole point of going for an interview. And that's why when I'm prepping clients for, I'm very careful that we're not repeating the same thing over and over again. Don't forget, these people have heard it all. They've heard the same thing time and time and time again, right? They're almost rolling their eyes when they ask a question, because they almost know what answer they're going to get. You have to think of a way to answer a question that just makes you stand out. And again, if you've done your research, if you've been on LinkedIn, if you've contacted people working in that organization, if you're telling the people interviewing you that, yes, I've connected with a few people on your organization, they've actually told me that this, I mean, come on now, you're going to stand out from the crowd, right? Because the other 9 people who were at the same interview didn't think to do what you did. So these are the kind of things that it's almost like a game when you go for an interview. And for me, I'm always like, are you ready to play that game with them? And if you are, the chances are you are going to get that job.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. We have more questions coming in, and let me see. There's a shift that I see from academics to professional courses,
Absolutely.
certifications. Yeah. And not stick to the scores in elementary education. Yeah.
That's right. And that's also to do with your continuous professional development, your
Learning.
CPD. So
Yes.
that's really important.
She has a question about military veterans. And I think I should invite her on a separate LinkedIn Live to talk about that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not an expert when it comes to military veterans, but I actually do know an expert for this, Jennifer Dahl, who I also co-moderate on Clubhouse with on employability skills, and she's a total expert of the military. That's not my area of expertise, so I wouldn't want to dish out the wrong information.
Okay, then we have Sonal saying, so important that each of us keeps learning. Nothing wrong with changing your mind. When we know better, we do better. And it's really so important to have this dialogue.
Sonal is spot on.
And we have Slava from the US. Numbers are important. It helps to put on your resume sentences like, as a result, it saved the company $90 million.
Me and Slava, high five. Spot on. Perfect example. Again, you're telling somebody that you saved their company X amount of money. How did you do this? So again, you will just tell us that bit more of how you did it, and chances are you are going to get an interview if that is on your resume. Spot on.
And here we have Sona. Oh, she's so funny. Stella, you have the personality for stage. Seriously, side hustle potential.
Love it.
Oh, that's so nice. And
I love her.
I'm only wondering how good her workshops would be. I think this is a little taste. I think it's even better. So
this is just
preview.
a little. I haven't got my actual clappers on me, because even in my virtual sessions, I have clappers. My workshops, I love delivering. Also on employability skills, I'm very, very passionate. I'm passionate about job seekers, making sure that their resumes are fit for purpose, because for the most part, a lot of people are actually competent and should get the job. But unfortunately, you see their CVs and their resumes, and it's a bit of a disaster. So once we work together to make it, they begin to see a difference in terms of at least getting an interview, and that is always just the icing on the cake for people like myself as a career coach.
Let me see. I have one more question before we wrap up, Titi. The first one is, how does one transition using the experience one has? I want to transition to a fintech, but it's been challenging.
And again, I think it's really, fintech is another big one that is exploding at the moment. And I think I didn't see the name of the person who wrote Titi. So Titi, my advice will be this: if you are on Clubhouse, go into the fintech club rooms, okay? Because they've got some amazing set of experts who actually give information with regards to people who want to transition into another job. Because if I was to advise you as a career coach, what I'd be talking to you about is, what are your transferable skills? That is literally what I would focus on initially. But with that, I would then probably, expert, again, I know so many people in that industry, and I would go and talk to them for specific subject matter experts. I'm talking about recruiters in fintech, and there are plenty. So again, it's really important that for those people who are transitioning, think about your transferable skills first, because you will have them in any job you want to, to transition to. So that's the first thing you need to think about. But the biggest tip I would give is, go and talk to people in that industry. And if you are on LinkedIn, you go and engage on their content first. Please don't go straight to their DMs, because the chances are you're not going to get a response. But if they're active on LinkedIn, go and start to engage on their content, okay? Because then you start to establish that relationship, and then you can then move on to the DMs, where you can start asking for these questions. A lot of these people who are professional on LinkedIn are more than willing to support you for nothing, for free. Clubhouse is another great platform where you will have so many experts giving so much of their time for free, and giving you all the resources to help people like you in terms of transitioning. So I hope I've answered that question, Titi.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Really being proactive and asking questions, and always come, if you're going to the direct messages, do it in a personalized way. Don't send messages like it was automated or like a robot, because I get the messages, first message, almost like, give me a job. This is not a way how to build a relationship with a recruiter. Do it like you would talk to somebody in a networking event. You wouldn't just.
Absolutely. And again, that is I'm so glad you brought that up, Tiina. Don't send a DM as you are entitled. I
Yeah.
get so many DMs, and literally I get, can you review my CV? No, hello Stella. No, I've been looking at your content, I've been engaging with you. No, actually, can you review? No, I cannot review your CV, because if you come at me like that, I will react in that same manner that you have come to me like that. I'm all for supporting people, but you are entitled to that help, because again, you're not going to get a positive response back. And I would respond to you, and I would tell you that that is not the right approach. You don't endear yourself when people and just expecting something and you've done nothing. That's not how, you've got to do some work to be able to get my attention for me to want to help and support you. So I love the fact that you brought that point up, Tiina.
So what would you say, three employability tips to remember? I think I would add the Stella, definitely. I will never forget when I think about that again.
Stella star.
A
Stella
golden
star.
star.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, CVs, resumes, interviews, think of STAR: situation, task, action, result. Okay. Another great tip is think about the format CV and resume. Okay, don't use online templates. And one big tip I'm going to say is Canva is not your friend for CVs. I warn you now. Canva is great for everything else. Run very fast away from Canva when it comes to formatting your CV. And I'll tell you why for two reasons before we go, because this is probably the best tip ever. The reason why people like myself are very against Canva as a format for your CV is, one, it is not ATS compliant, okay, because it will have pictures, it will have all these different font sizes and all this. It's not ATS compliant. And two, remember my 200 CVs in front of me, okay? If I have 190 CVs that look exactly the same, meaning that it's come from Canva, you do not stand out from the crowd. Okay, so that is a real big thing in terms of, you're giving me a reason to dump your CV in the bin. So that's why we say don't use the online templates, because usually these online templates and Canva, they're not ATS friendly, nor you just don't stand out from the crowd because everybody's doing it. And again, you get a lot of these, as I call them, Mickey Mouse resume writers who have no idea about ATS and will offer their services to do your CV ATS compliant. So again, do your due diligence, really do your research into be helping you write your CVs, and make sure that your CV is finally fit for purpose.
Thank you so much, Stella. So no Canva CV. then you're
Run!
already.
Run away!
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you.
Honestly, Tiina, when you asked me to come onto your podcast, yes! Thank you so much for having me. It's been honestly a real joy talking to you and engaging with those who have been listening in. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who joined us. Bye.